seedemocracynow.org for more information. A very special thanks to our colleagues here in Sharm el-Sheikh, to Hani Massoud, to Sharif Abdel-Quddus, Dennis Moynihan, Nermeen Sheikh. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Glad to be here. Glad to be with you. It's always wonderful to have the KFAI family, the KFAI community and world. World, I say, because KFAI not only reaches our broadcast audience, but our global audience at kfai.org. So it's cool. It's cool to have that reach and that connection. And to add to that, our social media outreach, our platforms, they include YouTube at the Black Press of America and Facebook at the Black Press of America. They include the McFarlane Media Inside News, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and now other social media posts as well. So we're doing a lot of stuff, bringing the technology to the service of our community, of our stories, our visions, and our potential. Pleased to do that today with a conversation that's long overdue for me, and that's a conversation focusing on Lake Street. I'm happy to have Alex Tsatsoulis, who is the Director of Development for the Lake Street Council, here to talk about their work on Lake Street. Let's start with a video that's really cool. And there's other videos we'll do over the course of the program, but this one is a great introduction, so check it out.
It's all about the 6, 1, 2. Hailing from the south side, do it for the north side too. What you know about Lake Street, Midtown Zoo, Freedom Boulevard, Revolution Avenue. We from the 6, 1, 2. Uncle playing ball with the kids on their day off from school. Better open up the curtains, let the sun shine through. Blessings to the elders, giving wisdom to the youth. I was on the 21, wasn't even 21. Nothing in my pocket but some quarters and a honey bun. Kickstart the single speed, me soaking in the sun. Too much fun is never enough. Lake Street, I ain't making no plans, I see where the night takes me. Serenity be my tour guide, embrace me. May we get banking and make it a lot. Stage to the block, we've been way out the box. 2 times if you riding down Lake Street, and 1 time if you rolling through the 612. Been in the crib all week, got me angsty. Friday night, only question what we gon' do. It's all about the 6, 1, 2. Hailing from the south side, do it for the north side too. What you know about Lake Street, Midtown Zoo, Freedom Boulevard, Revolution Avenue. We from the 6, 1, 2. Uncle playing ball with the kids on their day off from school. Better open up the curtains, let the sun shine through. Blessings to the elders, giving wisdom to the youth. I was on the 18, face resembled the babies on the way to get some local couples hopping off on Lake Street. 13 years later in bed, I'm doing the same thing. Same neighborhood, same dream with the same team. The posse from the barrio, pasta from Somalia. The whip it came from Cottage Grove, flexing in my Adidas. Music, you know how it goes, we make you move your body up. The culture's influence, take a look around, it's obvious. My faith is in the people, never in those in power. Changes from the streets, we can make those in an hour. Living color beauty on the block's gonna show it. The smiles on everybody's face, cause they know it. It's all about the 6, 1, 2. Hailing from the south side, do it for the north side too. What you know about Lake Street, Midtown Blue, Freedom Boulevard, Revolution Avenue. We from the 6, 1, 2. Uncle playing ball with the kids on their day off from school. Better open up the curtains, let the sun shine through. Blessings to the elders, giving wisdom to the youth. And even when the sun goes down, the light is on my soul, it'll never go out. Flying through the sun, I'm gonna brush those clouds. The birds by my window, yeah, I love those sounds. And even when the sun goes down, the lights on my soul, it'll never go out. Flying through the sun, I'm gonna brush those clouds. The birds by my window, yeah, I love those sounds.
There we go. I had to unmute my own microphone. I'm going to bring in Alex Tsatsoulis now. Alex, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, good to see you here. Glad to have this conversation. What a wonderful video. And for those who had to watch it in their mind's eye, those who are listening on KFAI, I know that your imaginations put you in the space, in the zone, because the music, the lyrics, the rap was that powerful. The vibe was that strong. So tell us about that particular work of art, first of all. That was very nice.
For sure. So, that every time I hear that song, I always get like really pumped up about about Lake Street, which is great, which is what we want, right? We want people to be excited to come and explore Lake Street and visit. That was a video that was created as part of our promotions for the corridor. We do a lot of work to try to bring folks out to Lake Street to visit businesses, to shop, to eat, and just showcase all that Lake Street has to offer. And so that's just one piece of that larger kind of promotional puzzle for us. And I'm really excited because I'm in it, which for folks who couldn't see it, I am riding with my kids on the Greenway. And as someone who lives off of Lake Street, visits Lake Street all the time. When I got asked, if I'd be willing to bike some places on Lake Street, I said, sure. I mean, we go to all the time. So, just really fun to be a part of it. And again, just to get people excited about all that's happening on Lake Street.
Let me introduce you to my writing partner, Brenda Lyle-Gray. She joins me every day from the mountains of New Mexico. And in terms of community and connectivity, and that's kind of what you're all about, I think, what you're talking about in Lake Street and South Minneapolis and community. Brenda and I were in kindergarten together in Kansas City, and we're both 75 now. So it's a long time. And the beauty of it is that we still have a story and a vision, and expectations of our world and our community and of ourselves. And we work at that. And I think that's what you are talking about, is the nature, the core vibe of Lake Street and the greater Lake Street community. Does that make sense to you?
That definitely makes sense to me. I think, we've talked a lot organizationally and just with our partners about kind of the energy that there is on Lake Street, and every part of Lake Street's a little bit different, but the whole street does have kind of that vibe, that connectivity. And one thing that we've really focused on the last few years is rebuilding the connections that we've lost as a community. First with COVID, then with the uprising, and the damage that we saw on Lake Street. Bringing folks back together, just to have the community conversations that we need to have the healing conversations that we need to have, has been a really big part of our work. And then again, just I think when you turn on the news, people are talking about Lake Street, they always lead with a negative image, right? Mm-hmm. They show something burning. They show something, we want to show what's happening now on Lake Street. We want to show the what I saw, as someone who lived a half a block off of Lake Street in 2020, which was community coming out for community. People coming out for each other, supporting each other, and that positive energy has continued. And that positive energy has brought Lake Street back, is creating a sense of vibrancy, a sense of community. And that's what we want to showcase. And that's why, like videos like that, or just the events and other work that we do are about bringing people together, making sure that we're all working together to move forward together.
Well, let's talk about the Lake Street story. I think that particularly for people that are going to be viewing or are viewing from around the country, around the world, it's useful to give perspective and context. And, Lake Street is important in its own right, but Minneapolis has a different stature in the world now that grew out of the tragic, but what's the right word for it? The tragic, but transformative experience that we are going through right now in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. And so Lake Street, is like a east-west thoroughfare corridor, retail corridor that goes from the very farthest border, western border, to the eastern border, which is the river, the Mississippi River. And from there, you go into St. Paul. So Lake Street has been that main corridor from the beginning for years and years. And you can talk about that. But what happened on not Lake, but Chicago and 38th, I believe, is where George Floyd Square is. 8 blocks south of Lake Street on Chicago Avenue is where the grocery store was, where the officers arrested and murdered George Floyd. And that changed, the community. It changed the world. It did change Lake Street because part of the anger that was pent up and that came out of that ended up in massive disruptions that included destroying property and burning places. And so you cannot not talk about it, but you cannot, that's not the definition of what Lake Street is, nor of the community. But walk us through, the history of the community, putting that in context and talking about how that experience, however, is also a launching pad, a springboard for allowing the very best of us to come forward. Is that a right way to look at it?
Sure. Yes, I agree. I think, Lake Street has always been a kind of driven forward by immigrant communities, from early European immigrants. And if you're ever interested, we have a museum in the streets exhibit along Lake Street where you can see some really early Lake Street history, which is always a nice walk, to, new waves of immigration in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s that really brought a whole different group of communities to Lake Street. And so Lake Street's always been evolving, always been changing, always been growing. The murder of George Floyd in 2020, and then the subsequent protests that started kind of around the 3rd precinct, which is on Lake Street and Minnehaha, and that's kind of why that was a focus area. That ended with about 500 businesses damaged and about 30 plus buildings destroyed along Lake Street, which is an immense tragedy for the community, especially for a community where a lot of folks are low income, property owners. The businesses tended to be, especially in the Midtown area, are BIPOC or immigrant owned. And for a lot of folks who were renting, who were leasing, their businesses were what they had for being able to build wealth, to provide jobs in the community. And so losing that was an immense tragedy. Now, I think, the flip side of this is that what happened almost immediately after that is kind of the showcases the best of our community and frankly, the world. We started the We Love Lake Street Fund, and we were one of many groups that were organizing to try to help support businesses and community members in this time. And almost overnight, $12 million came in from 65,000 plus people across the world, most here in the Twin Cities, in the United States. But, we got donations from people in Japan, from Europe. I mean, people from all over who saw what happened and wanted to support the folks who were hurting in this time. And so, that was an immense help. And I think that is one of the big reasons that so much of Lake Street is still here with us. We were able, within just weeks, to get out over $6 million to support small businesses. And, we were oftentimes the first folks out there with grants, with forgivable loans, so people could restock their shelves, fix their broken windows and doors, really. And then just one-on-one work with them to, work with their insurance companies, work with other programs that were coming online. So that was really community. That was individuals, that was philanthropy, that was local companies stepping up and saying, we're part of this community and we want to make sure that it heals and it's here for us in the future.
I'm Al McFarlane. You're listening to The Conversation with Al McFarlane here on KFAI. My guest is Alex Tsatsoulis. He is the development director for Lake Street Council and giving us kind of a tour, both geographically and longitudinally, time-wise, about this great asset and resource called Lake Street. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so Lake Street as a whole, it's one of the biggest commercial corridors in Minneapolis. We weren't the only ones impacted. Obviously, West Broadway, the Midway, 38th in Chicago, as you mentioned. There's a lot of parts of Minneapolis and St. Paul that were impacted in 2020. But again, our focus is this corridor and the entrepreneurs that call it home. But we've been working with partners from across the Twin Cities to learn from each other and find ways to move forward all together. So there's been a lot of redevelopment that's been happening. Our focus in the first year was really making sure people could get back on their feet, making sure people had money to keep their doors open. Again, this was when COVID was at its worst. We didn't have a vaccine or anything yet, and so places were already shutting down because of that. We had our office. This was right before I started at the organization. Our office had gone remote already. So we were. This was all happening in this world, where we're already, kind of, splitting apart in a lot of ways. And so our work since then has really been to focus on a couple of things. One is bringing folks back to Lake Street, helping market the corridor, helping market individual businesses, supporting folks as they grow their businesses. Our bread and butter work before 2020 was really that business support work. So we worked with real small businesses to make sure they had the tools they need to succeed. And we have folks on staff who are fluent in native speakers of Spanish, Somali, and English to be able to really assist folks wherever they're at in their business, whether you want to start a business or you've already started a business on Lake Street. So going back to those roots in the coming years here. And then a lot of placemaking. So just bringing people back. A lot of the new murals and things you see on the corridor were supported by the Lake Street Council. A lot of the events, we've been helping community events. We've been putting on our own events. And then we've been helping just in being a part of community partnerships. So there's a lot of wonderful partnerships that have grown along the corridor from philanthropy, from business to community members that have really stepped up and have made a huge difference on the corridor. For example, the Triple R Fund, which has helped do a bunch of facade work on the corridor, just making businesses look nicer. Just improving the look and feel of the corridor has made a huge difference, because then we can when we're encouraging people to come here, there's a nice refreshed place to come to. And so all that work is incredibly important for Lake Street moving forward. And I think the number one thing that I take as someone who lives on Lake Street, has been a part of this community for over a decade. It's incredibly personally important to me that so much of our community has been a part of this. And it's just made such a big difference to have our community stepping up for each other, not just when we needed it most in 2020 and 21, but moving forward, that we're all kind of together making this work happen.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. My guest, Alex Tsatsoulis, the Development Director for Lake Street Council. Alex, how much has been spent so far, raised and spent, to support Lake Street, Lake area, and how much is needed? And before you answer, I've been on the air saying the investment needs to be at least $1 billion We should figure out a way to put $1 billion in the community on Lake Street, supporting businesses and families and institutions and organizations. We need to put $1 billion on the street in North Minneapolis, West Broadway, Plymouth Avenue, Lowry Avenue, to incent and encourage and support development, because these communities have been historically marginalized and sort of left to sometimes just linger in the wind. Same thing with Summit University in St. Paul, Midway area. But what has been so far, and what are you all saying? I'm just a voice in the wilderness crying, but I'm sticking with $1 billion that's needed, and I'm gonna tell anybody every time.
I don't think anyone would say no to $1 billion. That's for sure. Just from our end of things, we raised about $12 million, and a lot of that is out the door right now or pledged out the door. So a big thing that we've been focusing on is for a lot of the projects that are happening on Lake Street right now, the entrepreneurs who are leading them never expected to be architects and developers. They were running a small business, and when their building got destroyed, now they're being thrust into this role where they have to come up with what's next. And so we've been helping with pre-development support, acquisition support, so people can keep property local, make sure that they're affordable spaces. So a lot of that work is happening now, and a lot of the money's been pledged there. I think we identified a couple $100 million in need at least on Lake Street, and the reality is it's hard to know because there are so many projects that are in different stages, and there are folks who just don't really know what the way forward is yet for what they want to do. You see the chain stores like the AutoZone is back open, Target's back open. Those places have assets. They can reach back and they can get money to rebuild. At the same time, on Lake Street, for some smaller projects, it's just going to take a while, and they do need that big investment. Again, there's been some pretty big investments from philanthropy, from corporations. We were really grateful to see, the Main Street funds come online, which, $10 million just came through there from the state, which is coming to a number of parts of Minneapolis and to St. Paul. But the reality is that the need is greater than the money that we have right now. And, I think that is something that isn't necessarily going to come from individuals. Like we can't go and ask our community to raise $200 million. It does have to come from larger sources like government. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to have that conversation and bring in some of those larger funds that are still needed.
Hang around if you would. I want to bring another guest in and also kind of ensure that we keep people's schedules working. And I'll have you kind of tie these conversations together, because I think art is one of the central core values of what you represent and do on Lake Street. Who's going to be joining me now is Damien Sneed. He's a composer, conductor, and musician. He is a pianist and organist, composer, producer, arranger, arts educator, whose work spans multiple genres. He's worked with jazz, classical, pop, and R&B legends like Aretha Franklin and Wynton Marsalis, Jesse Norman, Stevie Wonder, Diana Ross, Ashford Simpson, Lawrence Brownlee, and many others. He's a recipient of the prestigious Sphinx Medal of Excellence, which is presented annually to emerging Black and Latino leaders in classical music. And this year, he's embarked on a 36-city tour of North America, and the We Shall Overcome, a celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King, features Damien Sneed. That's the name of the project. It marks the 35th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was signed into law and made a holiday federally in 1983. He's going to be at the Ordway on the 18th, and we want to talk about that. Damien, welcome to the conversation with Al McFarlane. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you, Al?
I'm doing good. I know that you're in a time crunch down there, but I wanted to tell you how happy we are and pleased we are that we get a chance to talk to you and have you invite the community to know your work, your passion, and your mission and the special nature of what's going on with this project at the Ordway coming up.
Yes, I'm looking forward to returning back to the Ordway. It feels like home to me because my godmother, who sang at my parents' wedding before they adopted me in Augusta, Georgia, my godmother who went to Howard University, which is the same school that I attended, trying to be like her. My godmother, who I think the world has heard of and knows her voice, the late Jessie Norman. Her photo is right outside of the dressing room at the Ordway. The last time I was there doing We Shall Overcome, it was great. My friends from Sounds of Blackness were there as well. We had a chance to perform at one of the NAACP conventions together. But more so, I'm coming with a performance this time called Our Song, Our Story. And it is featuring two singers, Raven McMillan from Baltimore, Maryland, and Rayhan Bryce Davis, New York City, soprano and mezzo-soprano, and also a full string quartet of all African-American male musicians, instrumentalists, with Amir Joyner, also from Baltimore, Maryland, on violin one, Messiah Ahmed from Dallas, Texas, on second violin. On viola, we have Edward Hardy from New York City, and all the way from South Africa, a doctoral student at the Juilliard School, Tepelo Masita on cello, and I'll be on piano and hosting. Our Song, Our Story simply means we are standing up on the shoulders of those who came before us, like Marian Anderson, Paul Robeson, Leontine Price, Jessie Norman. I could go on. And we are singing music that tells our song and our story. Many times, as history can be his story or her story, we want to tell our story and our song. And so we're taking that across the country between now and the month of February. So I'm super excited about coming to the St. Paul, Minnesota area and Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. It's been a long time since I was there. It's just a great place. There's a lot. People don't realize how much cultural excellence resides in the Twin Cities area. I remember when I was in high school, I had a chance to perform at the Grammy Awards, and my roommate was from St. Paul, Minnesota. So I'm just excited about the area. I know it's going to be cold, but the food is excellent there. So we're looking forward to being there in the cold climate, but enjoying seeing everyone's faces.
Got a Jessie Norman story. I happened to give a speech this Saturday for the Sankofa series in St. Paul, and I opened the speech to set the energy, the vibe right with replaying Sister, well, I'm getting old, a song being sung by
Odetta, Jessie Norman, Odetta song?
No, she wasn't there. This was a tribute to Al Green in Washington, and Jessie Norman was in the audience. And I'll come up with her name in 1 second. But anyway, she was singing. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama were there. Spike Lee was there, but they panned the audience, but they also panned Jessie Norman. And she was just radiant in the audience. She was just so powerful. So when you said that, I said, boy, because she is such a beautiful spirit. Well, that spirit, that beauty that artists bring, how would you say, brother, you both are impacted and are delivering change in the context of the conversation that Alex and I are just talking about? You know, the crisis of pressure from COVID, the crisis of pressure from oppression, but our history of overcoming and transforming. What do you think?
Well, all of those are very prescient and apropos topics. When you talk about COVID, the pandemic, I myself have lost 28 relatives as of September 2020.
Oh.
28 relatives from ages 20 all the way up to 86. That's a lot of people. That's a tribe. When you talk about overcoming racial oppression, I know for many people, seeing an African-American male, I am an endangered species. That's why it brings me pride to have an all-male African-American string quartet, and to have these people, and we're singing opera arias from the regular canon, whether it's Puccini or Verdi or Rossini, and we're singing spirituals, and we're singing music by living composers. But when I think about what you were speaking of and everything we have here, music for me, it's a blessing, it's a calling. but I make sure I use my platform to give voice to those who don't have a voice, just as the great Nina Simone did, just as Harry Belafonte did, just as Joan Baez did, and Pete Seeger with "Oh Freedom" and "We Shall Overcome." Songs like that that give artists such as myself an ability to use the stage as a center for social justice, for change. Music is a universal language that helps us deal with the elephants in the room that people don't want to deal with. Also, art, expression, visual art, or whether it's paintings, or whether it's fashion, no matter what it is, poetry, spoken word. But I'm excited and always honored to be able to reach people of all ages, from 8 years old to 88 years old and above, because music is something that people enjoy. It connects us, it binds us together in a spirit of unity, but it helps us come together to have these conversations like you and Alex were just having, Al. And I think it's important that all of us realize we can never move forward if we don't really assess the past, be honest about where we are presently, and that will make sure our trajectory and our path forward is sure and that it's moving in the right direction. Otherwise, history will repeat itself.
What's your personal story? Take a minute and talk about Damien, Damien the infant, and the world that Damien was born into. How did it look to you when you first had a chance to assess it? And how does it look to you now?
Very interesting. Born in 1979. I was adopted by parents who were born in the 30s. My mother was born in 1933, my father in 1935. They both were the first in their families to go to college. That was a big thing back then. They would tell me of stories.
Both black?
Yes, both black. Yes, both
Okay.
black. My mother from Georgia, Augusta, Georgia. My father from Ellerbe, North Carolina, outside of Rockingham, Hamlet, and Fayetteville. They were the first in their families to go to HBCUs, Fayetteville State University and Fort Valley State University, North Carolina and in Georgia. But they told me what it was like, my father growing up on a farm, having people laugh at him because he had to walk to school. As a black boy, he couldn't ride the school bus. So every time I woke up late for school, he would tell me the story and say, "This is a privilege for you to be able to ride the bus to school." He said, "I'm driving you now, but all my father had was a mule." You know, my mother told me about drinking from a colored water fountain. And now she said, "Realize that you're going to school and you can drink from any fountain in the building." So they gave me an appreciation of education. The African-American community in America, including the church and the music, was always educational. The community was a village, raised each other. So I was brought up in that way. My grandmother was born at the turn of the century, like 1901. So I'm steeped in the tea bag of American history a little more than my peers that are my age, because I was raised by an older generation, but it helps me appreciate everything that's going on now. And Al, I'll tell you something. My aunt is 83 years old. And I'm sure people have heard this. She says all the time, "Damien, I don't think I've ever seen things as bad as they are now politically, with people. We are so quick to forget." So there's a need for platforms like this where we can talk and discuss these issues in a positive way, to be able to educate and to inform, because a lot of people, even as a college professor, people are afraid sometimes how to approach things. What is the politically correct terminology? How do I say things? But there are platforms like this and artistic endeavors that cause people to come together. I'll tell you something. It made me, my singers, and my musicians weep with tears. You know what? We were doing a performance, and I always sell CDs afterwards. I go to the table so I can greet people. There was a young girl who came up to us, and she was crying. We said, "What's wrong? Did you enjoy the concert?" She took her a while to get her druthers, so to speak. And she said, "I've never been around a white person in my life." And she said, "Thank you." She said, "I've seen things on TV and in film, and I didn't know that I could sit beside someone who's not the same color as me, and it would be okay." And it pricked our hearts, because we assume, being from the East Coast and how we were brought up, that everybody's around a diverse group of people. But who would think that a concert for someone at the age of 16 would give them their first experience being around someone who doesn't look like them? And what she came to realize is, even though someone's skin color may be different, deep down inside, we're the same.
Mhm.
And if that's what it's all about, if I had to do an entire tour just to reach that one girl who may reach a classroom, who may reach her generation, then
Yeah.
it was all worth it. And it's interesting, even though we're in 2022, there are still so many things that have not been uncovered, that have not been baked or completed, so to speak.
Mhm.
And we really need more uh, environments and platforms where we can talk, where we can grow together, and we can get over things that have worked to separate us as a people, not just here in America, but in the world.
It's about our humanity and claiming both space and time to be together and to show how we can live with balance and with justice and with compassion, with caring, with love, and in doing so, become and nurture our very best selves. That's what I think. And so, your vision, your view, when you wake up in the morning and the eyes pop open, you know. Uh, I'll ask you the same question twice again. So when you were 2, 3, 5, or 2 days old, and you could see, what did you see then? And what do you see now, particularly for the future?
Now I wake up every day asking, what is my assignment? Who am I supposed to reach? Who am I supposed to teach? Or what am I supposed to learn? Growing up for me between the ages of 2 years old to 5 years old is interesting that you ask that. Both of my parents were school teachers. My father is special ed. I was labeled. I was in special education because I was mute. I didn't speak. And as an African American male in America, when you have a learning disorder that has been placed over your head, you immediately go to special education. They said I had ADHD or have. Uh, I am autistic according to their standards. I'm far on the spectrum. Also, remember, I was mute. When I did start speaking at 3.5 and 4 years old, I stuttered horribly. So it's interesting that you asked about the ages of 2 to 5. My father and mother didn't want me to be in special education because with African American men, when you get labeled and placed in special education, the next thing for you is to be incarcerated in prison. I've seen it as an educator teaching elementary, middle school, high school, and college, and graduate students and doctoral students. So my father said, let's test him once more, because they also said that I was hyperactive and I was just down a negative path. And they found out that my IQ was higher than they thought. So then I started excelling in music. And when I started playing piano and singing, my speech changed. I was picked on because I didn't have the Southern accent or dialect that most of the people around me did. But it's interesting. It made me see everything differently, because at one time I was labeled and placed into a group. In New York State, we don't separate people based on whether they're special education. We put everybody together because in the real world, there's no separation. You're thrown out there. But for me, I see the world with a fresh outlook and a new opportunity. People say, but how could you have been mute and you had a stuttering problem? Yes, but you speak so well. It's something that I have to overcome daily. Even now, my brain is moving much faster, but I have to slow down the speech because otherwise I'd be stuttering and it doesn't look like great public speaking. But so it's something that I've had to overcome. So how do I see the world? I look at people never knowing what their struggle is, never knowing what they're dealing with on the inside, never knowing what they had to overcome, knowing that I overcame a lot and I'm still overcoming a lot. So We Shall Overcome is not just a group of people set in a specific time period dealing with certain imprisoning glass ceilings and certain legalities and laws and labels, but it's also what a person can overcome themselves. So I've overcome a speech impediment. I've overcome being labeled and being put into a box. That's why musically, I don't allow anyone, as Jesse Norman said, pigeon holes are for pigeons. Yes, I can play classical music. I can play jazz music. I can play gospel music. I can sing different styles. I can sing R&B, and it doesn't make me less of a person. I am educated, but I can do music that people who are not educated, so to speak, enjoy listening to. So I don't exist in a box. So I don't see the world in boxes and in one color. But because I am on the spectrum as I was labeled, I see colors. I see people as they are. I see people being able to be multidisciplinary and be able to speak well. You know, it's interesting. You see my hair, I've cut it down. It's a mohawk. I
Mhm.
remember when I was going to Carnegie Hall for my debut at Carnegie Hall. Now I've performed there maybe 8 or 9 times. I'm not bragging, but I went there and someone stopped me and they said, "You can't go to Carnegie Hall with the mohawk as a black man." I said, "Why can't I?" They said, "Because you have to have a regular." Well, what's a regular haircut? And so sometimes I do things just for people to wait to hear me open my mouth, or wait to hear me play, or wait to hear what was composed before they judge me based on the outer exterior, or what they think based on the film industry or television industry, what people have for commercialized boxes. So before I get all excited about it, so for me, that's how I saw the world as a 5-year-old. When my parents let me know, "Damien, you're no longer in special ed," at 5 years old.
Mhm.
And you can be with, well, what we call normal, the normative, or the regular people. I hate
Mhm.
regular. What is regular? What is normal? Who sets that? So for me, I'm constantly resetting every day. What is my assignment? What am I supposed to learn? Who am I supposed to help? And let me look at each person and give them all a clean slate and never judge anybody by their skin color, by their speech, by their impediment, whatever it is, if it's movement, no matter what it is, and let me receive this person for who they are and not put them in a box and make them a cookie cutter like an assimilated robot.
Wow.
Wow, my wow was going to come out before yours. Unreal, Damien.
Impressive.
A
Listen, we got
gentle
a
spirit.
we got a 2-minute clip, I think, of you. And if you can hang with us, Vosh, if we can play that, either you can play it or if the studio can play it, it'd be awesome to just look at you while you're looking at yourself in this tape here. And then I know you got to leave in about 3 or 4 minutes. I want to get this up if we can do it.
Wow.
Here it is. And for the listeners, this video is beautiful. Oh boy. Oh boy. Wonderful, man. Thank you. Thank you so much, Damien.
Thank you.
Damien Sneed, you've got to leave in a minute, but let me ask you to invite our listeners and viewers to see you and to know you and to buy some of your records when
Yes.
you perform here at the Ordway on the 18th. Make the invitation, please.
So I am coming to the Twin Cities area, to St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm looking forward to being there. I hope to see all of you there. It's a phenomenal program with Ray and Bryce Davis, one of the greatest young African-American mezzo-sopranos I've ever worked with. She's singing at the Metropolitan Opera. And also Raven McMillan, who just recently won the Metropolitan Opera's competition from Baltimore. She sings with Houston Grand Opera, soprano, and a phenomenal string quartet. The music will take you from opera arias, opera duets, spirituals, music by African American composers who are actually living, as well as German lieder and French songs, or French melodies, as they would say. It's really something for everybody. It doesn't matter your age, it's educational. I'll be hosting and speaking from the stage, explaining what we're performing while playing piano. There are some pieces featuring the string quartet. It's really a great evening of music. I think we should have grandmothers and aunts and uncles and godparents there, and children, people from the community. Even if you've never been to a concert like this, trust me, I've put it together to make sure you'll enjoy it. Even if you don't really know classical music or you don't think you like opera, please, this tour is starting now here in Alabama. We're looking forward to going to the Ordway. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. We're ending actually in DC on February 10th, right before Super Bowl at the Kennedy Center. But please make sure that you come out. I'd love to see all of you there and greet you afterwards. I'll have product there, some of my CDs, We Shall Overcome, that Al mentioned, and also my classical project, Classically Harlem. So you can follow me on social media for more information. Go to the Ordway for tickets. My Facebook page, my Instagram page, my website, and Twitter. They're all just Damien Sneed, DAMIEN SNEED. It makes it very simple for you to find. DamienSneed.com, IG, Damien Sneed, Facebook, Damien Sneed, all of that, Twitter, Damien Sneed. I hope to see all of you there. Let's pack out the place. I want to see my friends in the area. Let's be there, and let's use this as a moment to just not only declare our song and our story, but declare change in this nation and change in this world. So you can come dressed up, you can come dressed down. Just make sure you're there. I hope to see each of you there at the Ordway on Friday, November 18th in the evening.
And he's dropping the mic again. There we go. Brother, thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Al, and thank you, Brenda and Alex. Thank you so much for allowing me to share your platform. I appreciate it greatly, and I hope to see you out there too.
We hope to see you as well.
Wow.
Alice, let me come back to you, man. Thank you for your
I'm
patience.
saying the same thing David Rabb said.
You were
breathtaking.
And I love the fact that he mentioned, some of the music is German, global. Before we went on, you mentioned that you were born in Germany and are of Greek parentage anyway. So first of all, any impressions, thoughts, feelings about the information that he shared about the, I call it a testimony, the story, the narrative. I thought it was just powerful. But what are your feelings? What's your feelings?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think that was incredibly powerful, and just his music is just so just hits you so hard, just incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
Brenda,
A second wow. He's just so quiet, a quiet spirit, and then this power just flows out with not only the notes but the words. Wow, I needed that uplift today. It's 15 degrees here. He warmed my heart.
Well, and so it brings me back to this whole spirit of community, because I think that's a message beneath it and through it all. It's a message of recognition and a message of removing the boundaries, taking the blinders off, discovering our relationship to the truth, and that the truth is really accessible and available, and that we are all equity owners, stakeholders in the truth. And Alex, it seems to me that above all else, that's one of the outcomes and the products of the work that you are doing as a organizer and business person, but enabling and supporting creative people from all over the world, immigrant from here, multi-generational, but who know that we can be together and we can create community and commerce and create spaces that acknowledge and advantage all of us and not to the disadvantage of the other. That's what I think. I was going to ask you too. It would be cool, man. This is radio and digital. Use this opportunity to give some light to some of the businesses on Lake Street. I mean, even the the corporates have changed, but the neighborhood businesses, I think it's always good to hold them up, lift them up, and invite people to check them out and support them in the community. So, I know you can't say everybody, but who comes to mind
Sure.
first? Go ahead and give them some play.
I can maybe give some of my favorites. And,
Yeah.
again, I would say our website is visitlakestreet.com. We got a lot of different businesses listed there and highlighted for folks who want to check things out and find a business that meets kind of your needs. I would say, I personally, I'm vegan. And so I was really heartened a few years back when Trio Plant-Based opened up at Lake and Lindale. They are, I believe, the first Black-owned vegan restaurant in Minnesota, and I was really bummed when they went carry-out only for a while, but now they're back open for dining.
Where are they? Where are they?
They are at Lindale and Lake Street, so
Okay.
like right at kind of that intersection there. If you go, highly recommend the Mac Attack burger. It's got mac and cheese on a burger. It's amazing. It's kind of spicy. It's great.
Oh, that sounds good.
This is good information.
So that's
What's next? What's next?
that's a great one. If you're not into that kind of food, kitty corner from them is Rectangle Pizza, which opened up just shortly, I want to say about a year ago. Again, Lake and Lindale there. Then just further down Lake Street, there's tons of just a variety of restaurants. I think the Midtown Global Market, which is at Lake in Chicago, which is actually where I'm inside right now, is a really great place to try a whole bunch of different types of food. There's restaurants from all sorts of cultures here, backgrounds, and so
I've actually done this show from there.
Oh yeah,
do this show live with a band on the stage. In the center room there. Yeah, we have. Yeah.
That's great.
Piece.
Yes, highly recommend it. I mean, it's a great, if you're not really familiar with the area, if you're not really familiar with Lake Street, start at the Global Market. It's a great place to get to. It's really accessible by car, bus, bike, however you get around. Come to the market, check it out. A lot of great business, a lot of great stores also, not just food, but other shops here as well. And then, further down, I live kind of on East Lake, and there's some really cool. Arbiter is a really cool brewery that has opened up there. As I said, I'm on the bike in that video that we played at the very beginning of the show. We are leaving from the Hub Bike Shop, which is a co-op, and it's a pretty cool space. But there's lots of restaurants. There's lots of
the Hub
stores.
is on the Greenway, right?
Yep. Yeah. They're at Minnehaha and Lake. So they're actually like half a block down from where the 3rd precinct stood.
What's the one on the Greenway? What's the name of that one?
That is Freewheel Bike, and
Bike.
They're not open right now, but
okay.
hopefully soon. I haven't heard.
Okay, yeah, that was a cool place. I used to ride that. Anthony, Anthony Taylor, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony got me riding a bike, and part of our regular bike was from North Minneapolis through Cedar Lakes area to the Midtown Bikeway, and from the west side all the way down to Hiawatha, then back around to North Minneapolis. Wonderful. But our stop was always there at Freewheel, right?
Oh, that's great.
Yes,
it's a long ride too.
Yeah, it's a good ride. Excellent ride. Yeah.
But no, there's so many wonderful places on Lake Street to just check out, and so I really hope people will consider driving down or just walking up and down the street and seeing what there is.
Alex, I just wanted to tell you I'm an outsider. I've never visited the Twin Cities, but the video was so well done, and you could feel a place that you haven't seen, and kudos on that. I really enjoyed that and the talent. So that's going to give you a lot of leverage. I love that video.
I meant to ask you to talk about those young artists.
They were great.
What's the story on them? Who are they, and where else do you see them?
Yeah, they're local musicians, and to be fully transparent, I don't know that much about them. My coworker Marie worked with them directly. If you do go to our website, visitlakestreet.com, we have a page called Moving Forward, which highlights the video, has got more information about them as well, and some links to I think their things.
Okay.
But yeah, they're a local group.
So we're going to close now. We got a few minutes left, but I want to just show parts of until the time runs out and the station takes back over the other videos you sent. I think this is like a 12-minute video, but it consists of several 2-minute, 1-minute spots. Is that correct? That sound right? Am I reading this right? This one called Impact We've Had. It's a 6-minute and 26-second video.
So this is kind of our for 2021, we put together kind of an annual report video. It kind of told what our impact was in 2020. So just kind of looking back a little bit, and obviously a lot has happened since then. But I think it's really important, as folks are saying, to remember what happened in 2020 and kind of how we've grown as a community and how we move forward together.
Well, we're going to close with that. We've got, like I said, about 5 minutes left, and it's good content. I looked at it. Bosch, if you can cue that up and play it, we'll just go out with that. Brother, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work you do. And
thank you so much for having me.
Your colleagues, neighbors, and the entrepreneurs in South Minneapolis, and the residents and the shoppers. We have to keep figuring out how we can be with each other in ways that acknowledge and celebrate and nurture the best in us, the best of us for us. Take care.
Thank you.
So, Bosch, if you can play that, go ahead and play it. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And the station can take it when they need to.
Los 2 últimos años han sido difíciles para mi negocio. Primeramente lo del COVID, que estuvimos muchas semanas cerradas nuestro negocio, y después cuando nos preparamos para reabrir nuestro negocio tuvimos la sorpresa que fue un duro golpe para nosotros el 28 de mayo, que nuestro negocio fue saqueado y vandalizado. Un duro momento porque no estábamos preparados ni psicológicamente ni monetariamente. Así que han sido 2 años duros para nuestro negocio.
Well, the last 2 years has definitely been the most trying years of our 28 years in business.
It pretty much turned into chaos. Now it's starting to light up a little bit, but there's still some buildings we need to get the boards down a little bit to make it back bright like Lake Street used to be.
We love Lake Street.
I love the people, and you see people from every walk of life here, and they're welcome here.
Real diverse. We get people from everywhere.
I love that there are people who look like me.
Because the number one thing that everybody asks me is, why don't you guys move? We're not moving, ever, because we like it here. Like, this is our community, and I really do have a lot of hope for Lake Street, and I feel like we're gonna come back. Yeah, better than what it was before even. Yeah.
Lake Street is one of the strongest cultural corridors where people of color have had an opportunity to build business and commerce and wealth and self-reliance and independence from kind of macro oppressive systems. And so Lake Street being rebuilt stronger and better is a requirement to make sure that people of color had a place to go.
Lake Street Council was the first to reach out to me. They've been very supportive. If it wasn't for them, I probably would have had to move.
Lake Street Council has been the most helpful people in our recovery. And when you guys contacted me, I was like, what? This is a thing? Someone actually is going to help us pay for like fixing things? And it happened. It's definitely been a game changer.
I was able to start the rebuild through the Lake Street Council, so it helped out a whole lot.
We've helped over 400 businesses reopen, and 85% of those are operated by immigrant entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs of color. In the last year, we've invested $1.3 million in helping 20 entrepreneurs who lost everything begin to rebuild from the ground.
Como negociantes tenemos la fe y la esperanza de mirar una Lake Street reconstruida, llena de vida, una Lake Street multicultural. Yo sé que eso va a ser posible.
It's reimagining what community ownership looks like, community input from start to finish. So critical that community, regular, everyday folks get an opportunity to say what that looks like. Not only to say on paper, but to say in action.
In the last year, we supported 25 artists and organizations to produce public art and events along the Lake Street corridor. This is a really important next step in recovery, is really kind of helping us all remember what we love about Lake Street as a place that's a hub for arts and culture.
Business owners already know what they need to do to be successful in their own business. They know their own business better than anyone else.
To make sure that they become successful in the long term and not just the short term.
They need support with marketing and with financial literacy. And we're really fortunate that the Lake Street Council has a really great team of staff that can provide that assistance in English, Spanish, and Somali.
Porque gracias a ellos pudimos obtener este pequeño edificio. Y el sueño de este edificio es dividirlo para darle a otros negociantes la oportunidad de que ellos empiecen sus propios negocios.
As the backbone to the commercial corridor in South Minneapolis, it's paramount for the entire city and region that Lake Street comes back stronger.
We as a Lake Street Council can continue to help support small businesses with both their bigger and smaller needs.
I really want to say that the community has been working together to establish values for rebuilding and to preserve and further our community.
And to me, that recovery looks like generational wealth for the very same folks that have allowed us to be here in the first place.
There are some big holes in the fabric of Lake Street, but there are some exciting redevelopment projects that are planned for a lot of those vacant spaces, including affordable housing, state-of-the-art green buildings, an immigrant-owned theater, and a co-working space for African-American creative entrepreneurs. The community is really behind all these projects, but each of them really has a pretty substantial funding gap. We're looking for investors. We're also encouraging everyone to contact their representatives and encourage additional government investment in rebuilding Lake Street.